Hi, this is Miss Peggy, and I come to you with tools, tips, and my life story that will help you to live your best life. I want to talk to you today about birth path and how my birth path began and how it was joined to the band that God had for me, and it changed everything. Please subscribe and like my channel. Today, a birth path. Think about your mom, your dad, the life that they live, and how it intertwined and became your life. Was your life just a life of happenstance? Or is your life the life of joy and peace and purpose? I want to talk to you about my life today and how it began, how it's ending, and how great God has been in my life. Lorenzo Barkley was my husband of 20 years. Lorenzo was a brother of 7 brothers, 2 sisters. Lorenzo's never met his father, never knew his father's life. His father died when he was a young boy. I think he was around 7 years old. When I met him, Lorenzo told me that his dad was killed in the streets of our little hometown. Drugs, alcohol, and that rough life he knew his father to live. So he grew up understanding that his dad was like that. He found out later that his uncle died in the streets, killed in the streets near a bar, and that's how his uncle died too. He had a brother that was in prison for all the life that my children knew, my children's whole young life. They never knew him. They didn't meet him until they were grown. Lorenzo had another brother that had been in prison. And when he got out of prison, he lived a hermit lifestyle. He lived an in prison lifestyle. In his mind, he would be in the house, in the room, never wanting to come out and participate and be a part of the life of his family. We would bring the kids over and say to him, hey, we want you to see the kids, see the new baby. And he would look, and then he'd go right back in his room. That's what you call a person that was prison in their mind. He had left the prison building, but he was still in prison. It was sad because that same brother had a son that dealt with drugs and alcohol. He was killed in the streets too, left for dead in his car. And he was a young man in his 20s. Now, here I was, a young woman, pregnant, out of high school, out of wedlock, no daddy to be found, living with my mother. And a gospel tent came to my town. At that gospel tent, there I was, a young woman, pregnant, didn't know what to do, living in the house with my mom, pregnant with a child. I went to the gospel tent where there was a lot of people, probably the whole town came out to the gospel tent. I think it was there for almost a month that I could remember. It just seemed like it at the time. But there was a young woman going to the gospel tent, trying to hear about God, trying to do something different, trying to figure out my life. But there I was in the same attendance as Lorenzo and as many that was in the town that night. I gave my life to God. And something changed in me, and I wanted to be different. I didn't change my birth path. I didn't do anything any different that you could see physically in that moment. But God was up to something. Now, Lorenzo and I was in that same church for years. Was 75. By 76, Lorenzo started noticing me. Pastor was preaching about being fruitful and multiplying and marrying and having children. I'm like, I got a child. I don't want nothing but more of Jesus. And I meant that I was just not trying to go that route. I just wanted to learn more about God. I was an 18-year-old girl, and my life was difficult. I had no plans, no vision, no life, no wisdom, no truth. There I was. One Sunday afternoon, Lorenzo approached me. He was tall, 6'7". He was tall, dark, and handsome. I never paid him any attention. I would see him at church just like I did anybody else, but I never paid him any attention like paying attention. But he approached me. I come outside of the church. I'm in the church yard. And he came to me and he said, God told me you were going to be my wife. I looked up at him. I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I was confused. And I said to him, out of a sincere heart, God didn't say anything to me. And I knew he was serious because he was a serious guy. I didn't never see him to be joking around or playing. He wasn't that kind of person. So I knew if he said that, God had said something to him. I wasn't sure what. What was good about that? He didn't pursue me. He didn't follow after me. He didn't give me the eye at church. He didn't try to come by my house and say, did God say anything to you yet? He did not bother me. So there I was going to church back and forth, and I was kind of glad he didn't say nothing to me because it was an awkward situation. But yet, there we were. I began to watch him. Lorenzo used to sing really good. He was a good singer. Sometimes he would cry when he sung. He moved the whole congregation, all about 20 of us. He was different. He was a real man. He was a deacon. He sang. He preached. He was the pastor's right-hand man, and he helped around the church, and God began to open my eyes to let me see this man. Not see him as a person, not see him just his body, see him physically. God showed me his heart. I'm like, Lord, what's going on? What are you saying? Then I realized God was drawing me to him and showing him to me. Remember, I already had a child. I didn't think I was worthy to have a husband too. I wasn't that good. I didn't earn that. I know I gave my heart to God, but I understand how God works. I just felt like I had to be punished, and I got a baby, and I'm just going to go to church. I felt like I was unclean. I felt like I was unworthy. God looked beyond my faults and saw my needs. He knew, only God knew that when he put Peggy Barkley and Lorenzo Barkley together, it was going to make some magic. It was going to change some people. That the world would never be the same because we had arrived. And I thank God, because God began to show me his heart, and I ended up going back to him. And I said to him, I heard what you said a couple months ago. I see that you didn't pursue me. You didn't chase after me. You waited on God. And it was the Lord that said that to you. He said, will you be my wife? And I said, yes, I will be your wife. We began a family. We had Cedric. Cedric, that was his father. Lorenzo was Cedric's father. He raised him. He took care of him just as one of his own. Here comes Alonzo, our next son. Here comes Tavarian. Our next son was Brian. And my one and only daughter was Gabrielle. We had 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. We had broken a pattern. We were no longer on our birth path. My mom, she had 4 boys and me, one girl. Then she started over. She had 4 girls and 1 boy. So she had a total of 10 children. And I had my 5 before I called it quits. And I was like, no. And our life had changed. It had turned, his life had turned from the birth path of drugs, alcohol, and into a life to live for God. When Lorenzo gave his life to God, he was parked on the side of the road, drunk while driving. He did some time in jail. He didn't feel worthy either. Look at us, 2 unworthy people that God said, I got work for both of y'all to do together. While in jail, he turned his life around, his heart around. And when he came out, he went to the gospel tent as well. And there he was, getting prayer just like I did. Changing his life just like I did. We knew each other, but we didn't know each other. But God put us together. We met, I said I do. In 6 months, we were married, and we were together for over 20 years. God is so amazing. Our birth path was to go down one way, but God turned it for his good, to do his work, to change what we knew as the life that was set before us to a life that was changed before him. Now, we stopped going to the church that we were going to, and we started hearing about a ministry that talked about breaking generational curses. We began to learn about generational curses. We drove all the way to Orlando to Benny Hinn's church. We learned about generational curses being broken. And we sat there and we learned and we listened. Things were different. We were being taught on a different level. God wanted us to get that information. You see, that was the turning point. That was a change on the birth path that needed to be made. Why? Because now, not only our life would be changed and different for the better, but our children. Stay with me and I'll tell you how. Here it is. Lorenzo and I married. Lorenzo was was only an evangelist. He was a pastor. We would go feed the homeless on the streets. We took our children with us. We showed them, we taught them what love looked like. We didn't have to tell them, we showed them. They saw what real love looked like on a man and a woman. They saw what it looked like to truly serve God from giving to the poor. We wouldn't just give food. We would bring Bibles. We would sing to them on the street. We would pray for them on the street. I remember times taking the coat off my back to give to a pregnant woman on the streets. Homeless people. We had a heart for those that did not have. Because guess what? That was who we were. We didn't have. We knew poverty. We recognized it. And we wanted to help those that couldn't help themselves. I remember Lorenzo had people calling him to come and pick up lamb's meat and Pizza Hut pizzas and everything. We would literally cook the meat out there and make sandwiches. We had people following him. And one day, this brother would just come and come and come. He was homeless. He got him an apartment. He helped him. Lorenzo would encourage this young man over and over and over. Today, this man has his own church. Lorenzo never saw that, but he has left fruit in this earth. And God knows the people that have, from those words of encouragement, from that love that we showed to our fellow man, that changed their very lives. Our children saw what that looked like, and their life began to change. We broke the generational curse off of our children and our children's children. And today, Cedric has passed, but Alonzo is a principal, entrepreneur, book writer, author. He minister in his church. Oh my gosh. His wife, their children are growing up to be the same. Just amazing dancers, smart, honor roll students. Tavarian, his daughter plays the cello. Tavarian is a graphic artist. And just amazing man on his job. He's in high position and managerial position. He's an entrepreneur. He has his own business, t-shirt business. Gabrielle modeled in New York, uh, Brooklyn Fashion Week. She modeled. Her children come up as models. Just amazing. Oh my gosh. Just blessed because the generational curse was broken. Nobody in the Barkley family had graduated high school, graduated college, graduated, had master's degrees. You name it. My children have walked into a new path because why? We obey God. I listened to God tell me that this is your husband. I have brought him to you. I was broken. A woman with a child out of wedlock. He was broken. A man that just come out of prison. If you today, I don't care what your life is going through, know that it doesn't matter what your birth path was. Doesn't mean you got to follow down that road. It does mean that you have an opportunity, just like I did, to live your best and better life. God is waiting to change every step of the way. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be bringing videos, tools, tips, and my life story to help you to live your best and better life. God bless.